right, welcome to the Radical Hospitality Podcast. Today, I've got none other than the man, Blake Dailey himself, who's become a real legend in the boutique hospitality space. Started in the Air Force, went into short-term rentals, and then has built out an incredible portfolio of some really cool boutique hotels. And on top of all that is a recent father. So congratulations, man. Welcome to the Hospitality Podcast. How are you, Blake?
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. I don't know if I can live up to the living legend, but I'll try my best on here and give what I can.
You're doing it right now just because, man, you're out there and doing it. So
and
so
just
good.
deep in it, man. Every kind of aspect of it. We're buying, we're managing, we're renovating. It's all encompassing right now.
Well, I thought a great place to start just because you've recently become a dad, and we were just chatting a little bit offline about that. How is that changing your perspective and what you're going after in your business and what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think going back to the vision of what we're trying to do, it's very aligned because thinking in my mind, I've known since it was created, and my 3-year vision is up on my wall here from the book Vivid Vision, and knowing that Nicole and I, my wife, wanted to have a family and create a business that fuels our lifestyle and allows us to be present with the family and pour into that. It's a big thing for both of us. I feel like now we're living a piece of it and just trying to keep the things balanced and aligned, right? Putting time on my calendar now to spend time with the baby and spend time with Nicole and, support. And I feel like this stage is the fatherhood, really being a good dad is just supporting mom so she can handle the baby and do the feedings and all that kind of stuff. So I think as far as that, it's really just kind of turned up the responsibility factor and kind of brought weight to what it is we're doing on the business side. Because really the whole reason behind the business is to, produce an abundant, joyful, experience-filled, rich life for us. So that's kind of the retrospect moment right now.
I love it.
13 days into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the pleasure of getting to hang out with you and your wife a little bit at the boutique hotel conference. And you guys really do just reflect that in the work that you're doing. It's not just about business, but, it's joy and it's life. And I can see that in you guys. So that's cool. I always feel like if you have a big enough why, then you can accomplish about anything. And you've been accomplishing a lot up to this point. I found with me, having my kids were one of the things that added to that why. So I'm excited to see what happens next from here.
Yeah, it might just be gas on the fire. We'll see.
Gas on the fire. Yep. That's cool. Well, hey, maybe, for guests that don't know you, can we kind of take a little step back? We won't I'll go all the way back to childhood, but maybe back to the Air Force. That might be a good place to start. How did going through the Air Force and football shape your identity and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I played football at the Air Force Academy. I commissioned out of there and then spent 5 years active duty. So it really felt like, 9 years total with the 4 at the academy and then the 5 spent active as an officer. But during that time, going through the academy, playing football, I feel like I still bring that linebacker mentality to business and that competitive edge to business, the desire to win and to put in the work and all of that stuff into business. It's just the way I think about it. And I don't necessarily see competition with other people. It's the internal competition of knowing that the grind that I went through 3 years to get, really 4 years, it was my senior year. I didn't start until my senior year and got very few linebacker reps as a junior. So just a long grind of, being out there early to get in the steps, spending extra time in the film room because I never played linebacker in high school. So it was a new position for me when I got to college. So I really had to learn everything brand new.
What'd you play in high school?
I was a running back.
Running back? Oh, that's
a big, tall, slow running back. But dangerous enough, I guess, to say, hey, he's got the build for a linebacker. We can make that work. So got me to D1, and that was cool, and got me out of the small town of Indiana, which was the whole desire of pouring everything into football up until that point. And then having that identity as a football player, as a competitor, as an athlete, and then not having that anymore. I had got into real estate investing, or really had been into business, got into real estate investing, as seeing that as the way that we could really make something for ourselves once we, commissioned, got out in the real world, left the academy, and got into the adult world. And it was really after football, all my available time then went into real estate investing. I had 7 hours back a day that I wasn't in the weight room or in the the study room or like the film room or out on the field or just recovering from all that stuff. So I had all this time back. And I was like, I'm just going to start reading all these books. And it was, bigger pockets pouring into that, the podcast, the books, and really just trying to learn the fundamentals so that I could go out when I commission and use my VA loan, which is a super great but unfair advantage if you're not in the military, to get a 0% down loan when you have like a negative net worth and just enough money in your bank account to buy the house. But they qualified me and we got the loan, and that was a house with the guest suite, or like a mother-in-law unit, that we furnished with our credit card because we didn't have any money, put it on Airbnb, and then cash flowed to live for free because we were paying our bills from renting it as an Airbnb plus making money. And I was like, oh man, I think we're onto something with this, and just poured into it and kept going.
Back up to the football a little bit, because I've got to talk about that. I'm from East Texas, and that's
Live and breathe it
what
then.
that's what you live and breathe in the small towns. And as kind of like a small town East Texan, like that was Friday Night Lights. You show up, and I still look back at that as one of the like key growing areas of identity. You're learning how to work with the team, you're learning how to work hard. But I also look back at that, and I remember the guys hanging around the perimeter fence in their Leatherman jackets, talking about back in the day. And I always knew, like, hey, I don't want to be that guy. I want to, take what I'm going here and go build something. I look at you and I can see, you obviously had that same thing. Like, not talking about back in the day, you took that and you grew. What do you think makes the difference between, the guy that, played D1 and goes on to do something versus the guy that plays D1 and comes back and hangs around the fence in his Leatherman jacket?
Man, really, really great question. I'd probably say it's like the attitude of how you approach the activity, like how you approach the game in this case. And it's a difference of really falling in love with the game and liking to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then really being motivated, or like the other side is being really motivated by what you get out of it, motivated
Yeah.
by winning, wanting to be the best. It's like the personal growth through the sport, like through the trials and tribulations of getting your freaking clock cleaned, right? And getting your bell rung and having to get up, line up to another play and say, all right, I'm going to get you on the next one. And I think that was always it for me. Like, I loved football, I loved playing, obviously, but it was a purpose behind it. It was like an outlet for me to pursue like the competitive passion, to try to push myself to be better, to reach a goal. So like football for me was a goal out of the small town, right? Like, and then in college, like football was a way, even, I mean, we could boil it down to like, social stats, or like getting up to varsity and getting on the field and getting, accomplished of like, all right, I can actually hold my own as a D1 football player with some of these guys that are going to the NFL. Not that I really had aspirations of the NFL. I saw my inherent lack of athleticism grow pretty apparent. So I worked really hard. But I think that thing is the difference of like being, comfortable being one of the guys that builds a business or buys a couple houses and that's good, or, plays the game, scores a couple touchdowns and that's good, or being the person that wants to win the championship every single year. Whether you won it last year or not, it's like the art of winning and the competitive edge to it. And in a business, it's like, yes, you got the deal. Yes, we closed one hotel, but what's the purpose of that? And keeping pushing and finding like, pride and enjoyment as part of the process of getting better, of pushing yourself, because you just keep finding new thresholds that you get to keep exploring. I think that's probably the difference that I would see there.
Yeah, love that. So when I was at your hotel conference, I had a little snafu. I went to go fly out of the airport and,
Locked your keys in the car
missed
and had
lots of keys in the car, missed my flight, sent my wife home. I ended up, coming back
go
and
without
hanging
me,
out.
babe. I'll meet you back in our
I told her I'll just see you back home. So I went and hung out at the hotel for a little bit, and a couple of your teammates, I believe his name's Jet. Anyways, a couple of your football teammates that were there at the conference.
Oh, Jace. Yeah. He was either a freshman when I was a senior, or he came in as I was going out. But
That's right.
Great dude. Both brother.
Yeah. They heard me talking and they're like, hey, you need a ride back. And, they gave me a ride back to the hotel, or back to the airport when I got a new flight set up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of cool talking with them a little bit and seeing how they kind of looked up to you. I think he was a freshman when he was in, and, just again, talking about the team. When I look at business, there is guys that, come in as solopreneurs. I'm going to do it all. And then there is guys that are team players. and come in and their focus is on building a team. And my guess is, you probably fall on the ladder, but maybe tell me other, and what has,
Yeah, I think you
on your
have
team.
to really to really build something that is going to, one, just if like the goal is like financial freedom and the having the choice not to work, one, if you don't want to all the time, or two, if you just want to like take a vacation, or and actually enjoy your time. If that's the goal, you need the team, or else you're never going to be able to take that trip, to elevate yourself out. Like every time there's a demand, every time there's a customer complaint, every time whatever, in like in our business, every time there's new guests checking in or asking for more towels or whatever, you're the one fulfilling that request. So that's the solopreneur route in this game, and it gets really, really bottlenecked really quickly, because yes, you can get higher cash flow with short-term rentals. Yes, you can get that with hotels, but if you're going to try to do everything, you just become like the choke point for
Mm-hmm.
every decision, for every action. And then that's not really freedom. You can get yourself out of your W-2, but you're buying yourself another job that you may or may not like more once you actually are working it every single day, all your working hours now. Like you gave up a
Yeah.
9 to 5 for a freaking 5 to 9, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it's like that I think is where it gets really, really tricky. And I've definitely experienced parts of that. Now, as you progress, and going back to like the sports analogy, knowing that each position plays a role out on the field or out on the court, right? In football, you need 11 players to execute a play, right? You can't just be the quarterback, the star quarterback out there throwing a touchdown to nobody. Like you have to have the different pieces, and really understanding, how those pieces fit on, any given play, which could be like a strategic initiative, right, in your business, right? The linemen have to block, the receivers catch the ball, the running back runs it, the quarterback throws it or hands it off. It's like knowing where your team members go allows you guys to succeed together, and giving up the freedom of, you don't have to run the touchdowns and catch the touchdowns and throw the touchdowns. Like you want to build that team so somebody else can get the glory as well. Like you're helping them achieve your goal or achieve their
Mm-hmm.
goals, like their personal goals, by the company meeting its goals. And then when you align that, right, then you're winning the championship, right? The coach gets credit, the players gets credit, like offense and defense. Like it's
Let's
just
go.
this beautiful thing of everybody meshing together for a common goal, but also they're achieving like personal fulfillment, financial rewards, whatever it is. But as the business owner, like bringing it to that, right? Because if you're just a player on a team, you're going to have to play every play. As a business owner, by building the team, you actually get to step out, right? You get to let your team execute. You
At some
get to
point, you
get
get to
out
be
of
the
the day to
coach,
day.
right?
Yeah, you get to coach and train and manage more so than turning over units or messaging guests, or setting up a new software system or integrating a new thing into your PMS. Like you can actually step out, empower your team, and that allows you to have more free time or to be more strategic and push the business even more forward. So it allows you to get more leverage with the time that you have to work, and then that's where you start making a lot more money a lot faster, because you're applying that leverage and it compounds.
Yeah, different seasons of life for everything, right? Like there's the season when you're in the backyard and it's all about you throwing the ball with your dad and doing one-on-one. Then you're
Yep.
in the field, and maybe you're working your way up to being the team leader. And then you're
And you
Troy
get to
Aikman,
seven on
who's
seven, and then you're in
you're
shoulder pads
stepping
and helmet
back.
scrimmage time, and then it's
So
full go, right? Then you're
and
on
that's the
the
fun thing
big stage.
about business. I think it's sports 2.0. I
Oh
know
yeah.
probably in your business career, there's been kind of version 1.0 where it was you just throwing the ball, hoping somebody would be there to catch, and then probably 2.0, maybe you built out your short-term rental portfolio, and then now you are building out that boutique hotel where you're really having to step back and lead the team. What did your different teams look like in the short-term rental
Mm-hmm.
development versus what does your team look like now? Because it's a process, right? Like you don't just step into, being a,
Yeah, you don't just
franchise
hire
owner.
25 people day one and say,
Yeah.
all right, we're off and rolling. Unless maybe you buy a company, but
Yeah.
probably a different
But
audience
even
that we're
then you had
speaking
to
to
build
here.
something else to, go from one to the
Yeah, right,
next.
to get the
So,
capital to buy the company for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're starting out in short-term rentals, the cool thing is to, I mean, really even take it back to our analogy, right? To go out in the backyard and just throw the football up to yourself and catch it, right? Get the
Mm-hmm.
practice and, visualize doing it. Like you in that scenario, like you just need yourself. Like you just need to take the action. You need to put in the work and do the reps to find the deals, to, meet the agents that's going to send you the deals, to meet the title company and, the lender, whoever's going to help you fund it and get it closed. And then just do the operations yourself. I mean, either clean it yourself, which me and my wife did at the very beginning. It's like, man, we don't even know how much we're going to make on this thing. So we're not going to go pay a cleaner. We'll just do it ourselves when we can, and really learn the nuts and bolts of how to kind of run this little hospitality business, right? Because we have these Airbnb renters now. So you can definitely do that. And then as you progress, then it's like, all right, now let's get a cleaner, right? We're going to get that time back so we can kind of manage the whole process. Let's stop being the handyman and get somebody there. So those contracted things that you're just paying when you need them. And then as you get to maybe 4 or 5, 6, whatever STRs, then it's like, all right, let's get some help on the admin side. And the cool thing is that's a VA in the Philippines or South America or wherever that you can find on Upwork in about an hour, to screen through people and find the person you want to hire for like $4 or $5, $6 an hour. So that is very, very cheap to like build your little team of, VA, cleaner, and handyman to have your little small portfolio.
VA, is that like the person that's like answering the phone calls? Is that what you're utilizing that first
Yep, we have
hire
them
for?
do phone calls, which on the STR side, we don't receive a whole lot of phone calls, a
Yep.
lot more on the hotel side. But yeah, they do the phone calls, they do the guest messaging, they do the admin of, refund resolutions or alteration requests for stays, like all the little things that go into kind of managing. They do those things.
Okay.
And then the decisions kind of roll up. Like, hey, somebody's asking for a refund or they want to change, from Friday or Saturday. And then it's like, yes, no, kind of thing. And they have you just build out your processes. But that's important why like you do it first, because you know what's done. Then you can build the process. Then you can get people in, train them how to do it, and then step out. And that's what it looks
So
at like.
So that was hire 1 and 2 for the short-term rental business, was cleaner, and then VA kind of guest experience.
Yep. Yeah. Probably handyman at that stage too, to really make it pretty passive for you. And then you get to like, 5, 6, 7, 8 STRs. And then just like the decisions, the turnovers, somebody broke something and you've got to, get a replacement piece of furniture. And, you've got people, a group of 18-year-olds coming in for March that are, for spring break that look like they might be throwing a party. So you got to decide if you're going to let them rent it or not. Then like the admin and like the demands on your time become a lot. But you're kind of at that point where you don't have enough revenue to hire somebody to be the decision maker. And that's where I see people really kind of get burnt out with the STR stuff, is they just don't, you can keep going to buy house after house after house, but then like go through each transaction, right? Raise money if your capital's tapped for each house. Go through like closing and escrow and due diligence, and then you're furnishing, and then any renovations. Like that takes a lot of work. That takes a bigger team too, right? Then you got to have acquisitions and capital and all this different stuff going on top of the operational demands of the business. So either way, you're gonna have to build the team. So like from that point, you can either start to get partners to scale faster, or you can start to buy bigger deals, which kind of is what took me into boutique hotels. That was my path. It's like, I'm just going to go buy a bigger deal that has more revenue that allows me to hire that full back end team. So they become the filters of all the stuff that gets to me. And I'm in more of a, I'd say like empowered position of making the decisions in the business and making the
let's dive into the nuts and bolts on that, if you don't mind. So you built your 5 or 6, short-term rentals, and then you bought your first boutique hotel. What was that?
Yeah, we had 8 STRs before, and I think like 3 long-term rentals before buying our first 8-unit boutique hotel.
Okay, so you took your 8, and then you bought that hotel. So what did version 2.0 of daily management look like? Who were the hires that you, and how did that team lay out?
Yeah, so before, when we had the 8 STRs, I think 1 cleaner, maybe 2. Like I was kind of tapped out in that. It was like it was finding it so hard to find good people. So there was like 1 or 2 cleaners, had 1 or 2 inconsistent handymen that I could go, handymen, I guess, that I would go to for some things. But even then, like we didn't have a whole lot of cash flow that I wanted to pay all for the labor. So it was like me going to do the handyman stuff. And I was like, that's not a good use of my time. I need to be finding deals, man. That's where my best use of my time is. And then we went to, and I think I had 1 executive assistant who, like, that person's no longer here. I wasn't, as good as I am right now on, hiring VAs and training them. but I had one that was helping with some stuff. Then we got the 8-unit boutique hotel. So we doubled our units, we doubled our revenue, or maybe probably more than doubled the revenue. Shortly after that, we started buying the other boutique hotels. It's kind of like, hey, we got this when we closed it. We're doing the renovation. We're just gonna start buying some more. So we knew there was more coming down the pipeline. It happened really quickly. I was like, all right, I'm not messaging guests like this anymore. Like going from 8 to 16, I'm going to double the guests, right? So I'm going to double the questions, and they're smaller hotel units. So the length of stay is going to be lower. They're going to have more reservations and higher occupancy. So I was like, that's going to be a lot. So then it became, all right, now we're going to hire 2 people and call them our e-concierge. So they do the guest messaging, the phones, the booking admin, calendar management, all that kind of stuff to like service our guests and answer their questions and make them happy. I hired a new executive assistant who's now still with me today, 4.5, whatever years later, as my operations manager. She's freaking awesome. And then it became, all right, get another cleaner, get another handyman in the business that we had in Florida. So then it's more consistent. I'm not going to do the handyman stuff anymore. Then it rolled into buying the new hotels in Florida and then one in Tahoe. Then it was like, all right, now we're building property teams. So property manager, assistant manager, maintenance for that property alone, and then our cleaners for those properties. So it pretty quickly went from like small team, really me just like putting all the pieces together, to now a more scalable team where people are, doing their pieces of cleaning, of, messaging guests, of, maintenance requests, and the e-concierge are scheduling that. I'm just making sure everything kind of hums and goes together, to now, all right, now we're building property staff and getting more efficient with on-site property operations.
My philosophy, is always like, start out small and, make sure that what you build works, because you can scale fast, but you're usually scaling problems with it. So it was good. Right. Like you started out small, you had the executive assistant, and you figured out what didn't work before you grew that up. And it doesn't necessarily, like you said, grow, linearly. Sometimes these things can start to grow exponentially. And I've also found
that whole all the first deal, man. Like when you get through the first one, and brokers and lenders and agents and partners and investors, they all see you get a deal across the finish line. Then they're like, "Oh, cool, man. I wish I would have got in that one," or I had another deal I didn't, whatever. And then it's like, "Let me know when you get the next one," right? Or, "Hey, here's the next deal." And then it's like, "Oh man, like should we go take this on?" And then you start like licking your lips, starting to get the appetite of buying another one, and you go jump on it. So I think that law of the first deal is important. And then you just, so what we're kind of talking about is like the propco and the opco. Like as you build the property company, like as you buy more real estate, the opco, if you're going to manage that with STRs or hotels or whatever, the operating co or opco or management company has to grow with it. So the cool thing is like you have the natural demand driver of buying the real estate that like dictates when you need to hire, and it also brings the revenue with that new purchase that you need to hire. I guess it's like common sense scaling, right? You're not like growing a tech company or a software company where you have to go hire a bunch of people in order to produce revenue. It's like the revenue produces the people, and you reach these, I'll just keep saying bottlenecks of like, you can only do so much when you bring on a new property, and that's when you start to bring in the hires to relieve that and just bring yourself out. And then you get the new property, and then you've got to add whatever more people on the back end of the opco, the management company, in order to now support the ecosystem, because that's you're handling the ecosystem as you grow. And then you bring in, your marketing person, your director of operations, your revenue management, right? These support functions that you have in your business and like the revenue driving functions, and continue to scale out. It's just piece by piece. We just did it really, really quickly. I was like, oh shit, we need this. And then.
So I'll flip it about me here for a second and do some, your opinion on next steps, because I think there might be some people out there that are in the same, trajectory. So, we've done our first short-term rental. We hired a property management company. Both my wife and I, both entrepreneurs, and run our own companies, architecture business and a real estate brokerage. So we've got, kind of what we looked at as our cash flow day to day. And we're looking to scale up, a business necessarily for daily cash flow, but for real estate investment. So we hired that property management. It's been great. They do a fantastic job. Mailbox money, almost, very little issues on the call. We're in the process of then developing, our first like 22 unit boutique hotel. We've gone back and forth, and we build out. It's just the opportunity, chance to build a property management company.
We talked about this too at the
management company, because of our partnership that we have in the place, and a little tug of war. We've said, okay, we're going to just, hire a property management company. We've interviewed a bunch of guys into this and kind of set that as a third party. We're now looking at our third deal. Okay. And so this is the deal that's like, okay, is it time on this deal, because it's just, the two of us, easy decision making to build out that property management company to be able to scale. And again, our goals are scaling the assets. I don't necessarily want to be in the property management business, but I wouldn't mind. We have built good teams and VAs and resources, and I wouldn't mind doing that again if that helps us to be able to scale into a portfolio of projects. So is it worth it? If you're looking at that, like, would you build out the team to be able to help for the scale, or is it really a good resource if you're building that out for the cash flow itself? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think it's probably different depending on the stage that you're at. Like, I think at the beginning you talked about the one STR, right? And the difference of the next one's like the one hotel. Those two revenue streams are very, very different, right? The STR is going to be a lot lower. And for you and your wife with both businesses that are doing well and that are well paid, I wouldn't recommend probably building out an STR management company or like managing your own and buying more and then managing them yourself, because it becomes like a whole nother business activity, unless you just really hated architecture and your wife really hated doing real estate brokerage. But from what I know and what we've talked about, you guys like doing those things, right? Like the development piece, like those are very integrated into what you guys are building long term. So I would focus on those because, right, if your goal, which is really, really important to understand from the beginning, is to build assets for the equity growth over time and the passive income that comes from the cash flow of those real estate assets, then you don't need the management income because it's going to be incremental per deal versus what you can make in your architecture business or her brokerage business by doing whatever, like by putting out more marketing, by getting a referral from one client that you do a great job for. Like, those activities are going to be way more dollar productive for you than the $500 a month that you're going to make or save to yourself or pay to yourself if you manage yourself. On the hotel side, I would say it's a different story because it's going to be $1 million gross. I think we talked about, and like typical management fees are in like the 10% range. So it's going to be a 6-figure cash flow stream that could potentially, in a lot of cases, replace your income or her income, or in somebody else's case, replace the income that they need to be financially free to get out of the job that they don't like. And that revenue stream is now what they work for. And as they grow the company, as they build out, add revenue to it and can put more team and people in place, they can outsource themselves, right? And create the business that runs itself, which you can't do in your job. So I think the hotels are much more scalable. And when you think about, like, I'll call it the leverage factor that you have to improve performance or affect the changes that you want to see in that business. Maybe it's the hotel management company that you end up hiring is a little lackadaisical. They don't understand the market that well. They're not taking feedback from you. They're not sending financial reports correctly. Maybe they don't even have a good finance department, and they're sending you the wrong amounts, and you're not catching it because you're not looking at it every month. And at your year-end review with your CPA, you're like, oh shit, they left out like $15K that should come to me. Or whatever that situation is, you can affect all that yourself in the management business, and then you can always go backwards too. Right. As the STRs build out, you can roll them in to that management company because it's going to be the same operational foundation. So that's what we did as we got, because we were so focused on growing the hotels. Like, I continued to kind of manage the STRs that I owned kind of with my VA and, kind of using parts of the team as we built out the hotel and built the systems and built the operations. And once it was nice and clean, then we rolled it in as like a purely integrated, management company. Now we're a management company with STRs and boutique hotels under one brand. So that benefited us strategically and me time-wise to just utilize everything we just built to manage it. So then we could add on, I could buy another house and not even think about it. Just like, hey guys, we're adding this house, like build the listing, bring it in, like we're managing this one now. So like, it'd literally be easier for me to add another house to our management company than go to find a manager and vet their proposal and get to know them and track record, all that kind of stuff. We're going to do it. So that's kind of difference is like on the STR side, it's the incremental nature of it might not be worth enough, but on the hotel side, you have a significant enough revenue stream if you can manage effectively and like have alignment with partners or whatever it is,
Manage the managers.
to do much better. Because now you have the real estate cash flow, right? You have the appreciation, you have the tax benefits, and you have this revenue stream for management. So you can make really, really good money on boutique hotels. And that's what like all the people that I work with show them, that because a lot of people are trying to, do this strategy to get to their financial goals faster. Like it could only take one hotel. Like the cash flow from this $1 million per year hotel, is probably going to be somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. So that's 100 to 150 grand plus 100K of a management fee. If it's 10%, that's $200 to $250,000 per year with one hotel. I don't think there's anybody on here listening that wouldn't want an extra 200 to 250,000 a year. And not that like happens without work. It happens with a lot of work. Once you build it, it is so like it's just so easy to manage. Like my 85 units, 5 hotels in 2 different states spread out took like 4 hours a week to manage.
That's incredible. So, kind of back to the football analogy, like, when you start something like this, it's good to have a good playbook that you're stepping into, right? Like you could, be figuring this out with your buddies in the backyard, or you could step into, Vince Lombardi's playbook and say, like, here's how we're going to do it, right? And one of the things I liked about, the way your mind works and focus is you're building out standard operating procedures and a playbook for being able to step into this. And I imagine that would be kind of your target audience of business owners that might be stepping into boutique hotels. Probably should have some real estate or some STR experience, maybe, but maybe not. If you have somebody,
for sure, it definitely makes my job easier. Yeah. It makes it more likely for them to succeed, right? Like, essentially the mastermind hotel launch is the program, and like that's what we built is all the SOPs, the operating systems, the procedures, and really like the whole operational framework that I spent years building out is like what they get in there. And it's just like if you were to go buy a Subway, you'd get like the operating manual from the franchise. And it's very similar to that. Yep. Like here's everything you need to go run a hotel. And right, you'll have to adjust based on, your market, your size, your demographic of guests, all the thing, right, your different inputs. But the operational foundation is very much the same. And then you layer that on with like the guidance and the one-on-one coaching and like the group aspect to go implement that and know the contextual pieces of what to do and when, just gives you so much more leverage. So you can really stand up a hotel management company and know the pieces, meaning like the people and the systems to put in place based on your size so that you're, off and running from day one, right? Just like a new Subway open up in the town, there's going to be customers and revenue coming in from day one because that operator was given exactly what to do. So that's how I see it. I mean, I spent so much time, it's so much money building this stuff out. I was like, man, I wish I could have just freaking paid me and, skipped a dimension to like know what I know now. But you just I think you either do it by yourself and it takes a lot more time, effort, and money, or like you do it with others and it saves you the time, effort, and money. And some people just want to grind through and get there, and that's fine. And then others like me, like if you can give me like the little blue arrows that Sonic goes over and like it speeds them up to get to the end faster, I'll take that all day.
How are some of your students doing? Anybody started to implement some of this? Were you guys out in the cycle of the mastermind?
Yeah, they're doing really good. We've got really the group kind of presents all of the whole spectrum of like looking for first deal, in negotiations, under contract, just closed, in renovations, implementing the systems now, fully operational, hotels that have been up for a while. So like we kind of cover it all. So it's really cool to see, especially when we do our group calls, like these different problems across the timeline. And when you've been down, like through the timeline, you can like identify like these different, these pieces of the things that are going on and like the step that comes next. And then you get people who have, are 2 steps ahead, kind of giving that feedback down to those folks, which is really cool. So it's really been fulfilling to see people come in and, want to do hotels, right? And like have the goal, like be inspired by the creativity of them or the higher cash flow potential, or just be like, man, I really want to buy a hotel. Like I've been doing STRs. I'm just like fed up with it. I want to buy something bigger that's more scalable. Like see those people come in and then get the confidence through having people who's kind of has their back, has been through it, and just seeing like them jump in so much faster. Cause like before that's like, where do I even go? Like there's so many different options. What's the right one to pursue first? Is it like finding brokers? Is it finding investors? Is it going to LoopNet or whatever to look for deals? Do I need to just drive for dollars and call sellers? Like it's just taking all of this uncertainty and putting it into like a direction and going so you can get the deal, so you can get through like your renovation and, you know, your marketing and branding plan and all that, to like building your operations and your team to actually making some real freaking money, which is really cool.
Two areas I want to pull out there. So one is getting the money. I think that's a big question for a lot of people, raising capital. And then two, because I'm an architect, I'm interested in the, you know, the renovations, the design aspects. So table that, but I want to kind of come into that a little bit and how that's added value or not to projects. Maybe start with the capital raising portion. What do you see as, you know, key things for people to, you know, be able to step into that?
Now, I hear the question all the time, like, do I need to raise money first or do I need to find a deal? So it's kind of like being treated like a chicken and an egg problem. It's like you have to have one before the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really just you do both. And is that like harder? Yes. Does it take more intentionality? Does it take a little bit more planning? Does it take some calendar management? Like all of the above. Yes. Like you've got to work at it to close $1 million+ deals. Surprise. But when people like just pursue getting a deal or just pursue investors, they miss out the other part, and that kind of slows down the progress. Because I think you hear the advice all the time, right? You find a good deal and you'll find the money to make it work. I think that's 90% true. That's true up until a point of like, how much capital can you just not get, right? And that depends on everybody's experience and track record and network. For some people, it might be, you know, $100,000. Like I could raise 50, but I'm capped. I can't do 100. For other people, it's like $1 million+. Like I could do 500K for this deal, but I can't hit $1 million. So when you have like, you know, this timeline of 30, 60 or 90 days to close a property, you find the deal, you get under contract, and now you're going from maybe your track record is buying single family houses where they're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and you need like $100,000 or $200,000 all in. Now you might be looking at hotels that are $800,000, 1.5, 2 million. And you might need $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $1 million of capital to close one deal. And typically it's about 35 to 40% of like the amount you need. So if you're closing $1 million deal, you probably need 350 to 400,000. That's for your down payment, repairs, you know, closing costs, acquisition fee. If you're going to charge one of those, which I'd recommend because it gives you money to kind of build the team up front. But that's typically what we see is like 35 to 40%. So if you're going to buy $1 million deal, can you raise 400K? So if not, like be doing that now, like be building the, you know, the connections, you know, at conferences, at meetups, whatever, share like a sample deal package. We have one member in the mastermind who built out this whole very good pitch deck, but not for a deal. It was for the idea of the deals and the markets he's looking at. And I was like, dude, that's freaking awesome. You're going to have investors before you ever find the deal. And it's going to help you get there so much faster. Now, when you get under contract, you can start to raise money or like continue to raise money, but you can also do your due diligence in your acquisition planning and, you know, prepping for closing and actually running this thing. It's really hard to do both of those things at the same time, unless you have the experience doing it. And I think the biggest keys are just get out there, talk to people, build that sample pitch deck, tell people what you're looking for and say, you know, just present it in an opportunistic way. Like you're not asking for money. You're saying, hey man, I'm looking for these awesome boutique hotels, right? I want to go outside of Red Rocks and build a 22 unit boutique hotel in one of like the best little submarkets of Denver called the Red Hotel. It's going to be freaking sick. I got this architecture experience. If I get this deal done, you want to invest in it with me and make some money. So like you're giving them the chance to make a better return than the stock market. You're providing all the expertise and the work. So don't feel like you're asking for money. You're presenting the opportunity, and then just do that consistently. Like get in front of people, have those conversations, go to the lunches. Don't be lazy. Pick up your phone, go scroll through your contacts. Like, oh, I haven't talked to Zeke in a while. Like I know he's interested in some hotels. Let me call him and kind of share what I'm doing. And here's another tip you can ask, right? If you have that call, say, hey, do you know anybody who would be interested in investing in this deal with me? You'd be so surprised how many times people say, actually, yeah, I would. Shoot me over the deck.
I like the
and
ask,
actually end up investing.
you know, versus,
so like, yeah,
you
it's
know,
just like
lots
putting
of
out
times
the
the
work.
referral is an easier ask than, hey, would you be interested in investing? It's, hey, do you know anybody?
Yeah, then you don't have to give the direct ask. So if you're like one of the fear of rejection people, you don't have to get your feelings hurt. It's like, oh yeah, I actually don't know anybody. Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Send them the deck anyway. Like, hey, we talked about this, you know, a month ago. Here it is, just in case they change their mind.
You know, one of the things I've kind of noticed between a lot of the guys doing boutique hotels and versus what we've done is a lot of people are purchasing older hotels, renovating, coming in, and the time frame on that's a lot shorter.
Yeah,
you can kind of see what the operation is, and you say, hey, we're going to make this incremental improve, you know, versus, you know, we're kind of ground up with everything. You know, you can look and see what some other finished hotels are doing, but a lot of it's just forecasting and projection. That's kind of the hard part about it. The good part about it is, and it's much longer to go through the entitlements. But the risk factor of what we do when we lock up a piece of property and we take it through entitlements is by the time that we're closing with the property, we're closing on something that we've incrementally increased the value of. That was a raw piece of land that now has, the entitlements to be able to do boutique hotel or whatever it is that's going to go there.
Yep.
So when you're closing with that value. And it's also giving you the time and the vision, to have these conversations. When you can show somebody, a fly through and a headset to walk through, there's this,
Yeah,
vision
that's a
casting.
really good point. Because if you're doing your first raise, you're going to want as much time as like reasonably possible to make all the calls, to convince people to be like, I don't know, let me think about it. We'll talk next week. To have all those happen, you need that extra time. So that is definitely the benefit. And like on our side, a renovation, we've closed deals in like 17 days. You've got to have dry powder ready to
lined
go
up.
for investors that really trust you to jump in as long as the deal looks good. And, that can happen on any size of deals too. That could happen. Like one of my hotel deals was $357,000. So, to find whatever 20% of that down in a month, like you can go find less than 100K, right? Just pick up your phone. There's probably $1 million sitting in your contacts if you're just listening to this, if you call and have the conversations. But yeah, it's just a different timeline and a different set of things you have to do when you do the developments versus the renovations. But I want to get in your
With the
boat.
renovations, you still have
mindset.
walking through your property out there, you guys still have an extensive amount of new construction, renovation costs, projections. It kind of changes versus like what we're doing. We're designing out and then we're bidding, we're getting hard numbers for the full complete deal. We know what it's going to cost. Theoretically, when we close we could have closed on the property with a purchase of the land and a construction loan with one lump. We did it in 2 phases where we closed on the land and then we're with cash from our equity piece. And then we're going to close on the construction loan with the land as the equity plus some additional capital into it. But, theoretically, you kind of know close to what you're going to be getting into with the 17-day close and a renovation, plus, some, additional capital on the backside. You don't really know, what your total cost is going to be. I'm sure you'd have some thumbnails, but how do you manage the financing on that? And how do you phase out your capital to be able to then purchase and then go grab the construction loan? Or
so it depends on like the cycle of the deal. And what I mean by that is like a good example is that 17-day to close property. I was really working it for probably about 2 months. And then we got under contract and then closed 17 days later. Because then it was like, hey, we're under contract. I'm going to do a 3-week timeline or whatever it was. And I want to close. It's like when seller's ready, they're ready. And so we had all the projections out there. And, maybe you won't be as lucky. Maybe it'll be like, yeah, I want to sell. You got 17 days to close, figure it out. But it typically doesn't happen quite like that because you're going to have time, of your analysis and everything leading up to it. But in any case, right, like that's a quick amount of time to get repair bids and do due diligence, get all your inspections, make sure you don't have to redo roofs and electricals and all that stuff. And if you do, you've got to update your budget again. And I think from a budgeting and a phasing perspective, what I always do when I start out is I start with like a blanket cost for both renovations. And sometimes we're like, all right, I'll break it out to interior and exterior. Say, hey, landscaping, roofs, painting the siding, whatever it is, new windows is going to be, this much. And then on the inside, we want to do whatever, maybe it's flooring, paint, fixtures. So we're going to do $5,000 per room. So it's just a blanket cost. And we'll just multiply that out by the number of units. And on the FF&E side, if like nothing's being kept and we're completely redoing everything, like, okay, we're going to do, and it's all the hotel type rooms, we're going to do $7,000 per room on blanket FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It's basically the stuff that's going into the units. So then we just build our rough rehab estimate like that. And then we try to be as conservative as we can as that, we're adding GC fees, we're adding miscellaneous overhead of whatever stuff that we might miss. Cause anytime you get in a big renovation, you're going to miss stuff. So we want to have that buffer there. Nice. So we're being conservative, projecting across, adding a conservancy factor. And then we're going out to get the bids. We're going to start having contractors get into the project. We're going to walk them through it. We're going to give them a line item scope of work. So we're going to say, hey, if all your rooms are the same, then every room is flooring, paint, trim, fixtures, water heater, new tile tub, new tile shower. Plus, we're going to have vanities. So list out everything, the quantity of things that you're going to have, and then let the contractor provide the pricing. And I always ask for labor and materials. So we're getting very, very granular renovation bids from our contractors, and then we're going through vetting based on past projects and prices, and even some Google searches is whatever is $6 per square foot labor and materials. Is that a good cost or not? Like, I don't know if I've never done one. So you got to like look in and kind of go line by line again and make sure that they're not bidding one item but overbidding another to increase their profit there. So you got to do all those things. Then once you get into it, you can either do like we did on our smaller hotels, which were 20 units under, probably like just shut down the whole hotel and renovate it all at once and really push for, whatever timeline you want to get it done. Typically for 20 units, you can get done in 3 to 6 months, for renovation, and 3 to 6 months, depending on the scope of the repairs. Like if you're going to do a full gut job, it's going to be on the longer end of that or potentially more. And if you're just going to do, a cosmetic rehab redesign, you can probably be in that 3 to 4 month range. Compare that to Tremont, the one in Tennessee that we were just at for the conference. That's 130 rooms over 8 hotel buildings plus like the venue and the pavilion buildings. So really 10 buildings on 10 acres, really spread out. So we couldn't just shut down the whole hotel and renovate it for 6 to 12 months because we need income coming in to pay the mortgage, to pay the expenses, to pay for the team's payroll, all that kind of stuff. So we're going building by building, and we split into 6 phases. So technically not building by building, but 8 buildings into 6 phases. So we combine the smaller buildings into one phase combined. And we're doing that one phase while the other, 6 or 7 buildings are rented out, generating income for us. And then the next phase, we'll shut down the next building, open up that building. So we're going through in phases, keeping income coming in. And through that, our income will be ramping up. Over the course of the project, we'll have one, the equivalent of one building down, but we'll be getting more and more renovated rooms that are renting at higher rates and higher occupancy. So the income will be going up and to the right the whole time, which is the plan. So we're starting to see that now as we get this building done. Pretty much the big overview of how we handle it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Blake, this has been great. I appreciate all your inputs, insight. Last question for you: what's next on your horizon?
We're actually chasing a deal down right now, and that one that really excites me. Trying to be a present husband and father, and now that I'm now a daddy, and just trying to continue to like keep everything in line, grow the business, and say no more so I can say yes to the right opportunities. That's my big push for this quarter.
That's good. That's good. Well, definitely appreciate all your, time, input, insight. If there's anything we can ever do to give you guys a hand, please let us know.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Maybe take the next deal
just
down
a room
together.
when we come out to Denver when the project's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Come
give
check
me a ring. We've also got the tree house. If you guys want to come out and hang out there, we'd love to have you there as well.
I would love to come see it, man.
Cool. All right. Peace out.